Warriors, we are in for a real treat today because Kevin Metcalf is joining us. But first, I want to warn you, we're talking about reality and we have to. We have to get the information out there. We might talk about some uncomfortable issues, Kevin and I today, but we're talking about perhaps CSAM, child sexual abuse material online affecting so many children these days, our youth across the United States, across the globe. And also, we might touch on anything AI, artificial intelligence, but just buckle up and be warned. The only way to educate you is to give you the facts, to give you the truths, to give you the landscape of what's really happening out there. We know that you want to protect children because that's all we want to do also. Kevin Metcalf joins us. Let's talk a little bit about Kevin. He is an incredible. We don't have enough time to cover his background, his career, but we'll start with is a former federal agent and prosecutor, founded the National Child Protection Task Force, is a founding board member of Raven, and works with and empowers various agencies to protect children and childhood. He unites experts across multiple fields such as legal, strategy, open source intelligence, geospatial analysis, and cryptocurrency. And that's a big one, everybody, to support global law enforcement in cases of missing, exploited, and trafficked children. His contributions have left, oh, and we're so honored that he's with us, have left to numerous recoveries and arrests worldwide, earning him recognition as a global pioneer in integrating diverse intelligence disciplines to combat child exploitation and human trafficking. Kevin Metcalf, you are a warrior. You are bridging tech and criminal justice. Welcome. It is an honor, sir, to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Now, Kevin, I'm astounded by everything you're doing. I don't even know where to start, but I do want to start with one thing before we dig in on all of this. Tell us a little bit about you. What do you want to share about your background, yourself, that you want everybody to know?
Well, I started off, I never would have thought I would be working in technology. I never saw myself working in crimes against children or anything like that. My focus was always in terrorism, or I was on SWAT teams, air marshal, more physical, violence oriented. That's kind of what I came up in, military, state, local, federal law enforcement. When I came into prosecution as kind of a new guy after over 20 years and all this other stuff, I was looking for a place where I could add value. And it turns out everybody was shying away from technology, social media. So I just jumped in there because it was wide open. And that exposed me to what technology was really doing to people and especially children. And then I started noticing how many cases were just slipping through the cracks because we didn't have a good understanding of technology, what it was doing, because there's a lot of darkness around technology. It happens where we don't see it. We don't know how it works. We don't understand it really. And when I started diving into that's really what took me off in the path and the direction I've gone now. But Abraham Lincoln said, "Give me 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend 6 hours sharpening my axe." So you look at, and Stephen Covey used that in his book, talking about sharpening your axe. How do you do that? Well, the way that we do that in technology is if you're just with one agency and you're limited to your own exposure and your own experience, it's not enough. So I started looking out and helping people around everywhere on homicides, done a ton of homicides, property crimes, drug crimes, terrorism cases. All of that exposed me and the team that I work with to more and more repetitions. And we got better and better, and we really specialized in it. So that's what led me to this focus on technology, and especially what it does to children. Because as I sat across from a lot of my victims who either were currently children or who had been child victims, it became very clear that their childhood ended when that abuse began. And if you can imagine, Lynn, a whole generation of people growing up without childhood and what impact that's going to have not only on them, but everyone around them, the economy, our culture, our society. Childhood is important, and we have to do what we do better and faster.
Oh, that's a mouthful. I mean, you went in, you filled a void. Truly a warrior. Now, I'm glad you brought that up because people don't realize the scope of this. It affects every facet of everyone's lives.
It does.
The healthcare system, terrorism. I mean, it's like, I like to say, Kevin, it's a big wheel with like a lot of spokes and the
Right.
wheels going around and around and around. I want everybody to follow you on LinkedIn. You are right there. You're very active on LinkedIn. I tell you, Kevin, the one thing that keeps me up at night, I do not exaggerate, is AI, this artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence. I'm tough. Tell us about the landscape we're facing, because frankly, since the internet, 1996, and everything children and families have had to deal with, cyber crimes, all of it, it's in pretty bad shape. So now we're here with this AI. Lay it out for us. Give us your thoughts on all of this.
Let's think for a minute on what technology has done for everybody. There's a lot of good that comes from technology. If there weren't good that comes from technology, obviously we wouldn't have as much support for it. But there is so much good that comes from technology. We can deliver. Think about COVID. How would we have had meetings 20 years ago if COVID had hit and shut everything down? It would have shut down so much more. But we have all these video conferencing sites. But at the same time, the video conferencing on the encrypted level, it brings with it things like rape by proxy, where we have men in the UK and the US and Australia, the top 3 consumers of this, where over these encrypted apps and this, they can say, hey, I'll give you $15 if you'll abuse that child while I watch, and I'll send it to you on one of these money transfer apps. So everything that we see in technology, it's both good and bad. We used to have the mom and pop stores, around. And then Walmart, of course, hit that hard. And look what Amazon has done. Amazon now can reach into any place that has internet access, assuming they can deliver. Now think about kids. What do we deliver to kids? COVID really brought home to me the need for homework help. So we have a lot of homework help out here on these homework sites and a lot of them are really good that parents are on. But at the same time, there's also predators on those sites, because predators know this is where the kids are going to be. This is where we hunt. Now, we don't fully, although I know how to hunt in technology and I understand technology pretty well, I am not a super techie guy. I'm not a programmer or a coder. And I am trying to become more familiar with generative AI. And that has a lot of potential to help humanity, to help us to do things better, more efficiently, to do it faster. But what's on the negative side of that? Possibly the loss of jobs, loss of professions. I mean, you don't see phone books anymore, do you? There was a whole industry that was wiped out as technology progressed, and that's not the only one. So generative AI, just in and of itself, there are some things there. But when we start looking at what it can do, it can create videos from nothing. And I know Taylor Swift, and she is a victim, and I don't want to, downplay this any at all, but this is these deep fake sex videos have been happening to victims and happening to children, used in sextortion, used in a lot of other ways, but it never got any attention, never got any traction. But Taylor Swift now, she's a victim, and that has brought it to the forefront a little bit more. But you're looking at, of course, she didn't have the sex tape. One was created. So when you look at the possibility of this, one of the jobs I work in is victim ID. So in victim ID, now we're shifting over to child exploitation. And unfortunately, the term that we hear is child pornography. And that's because the statutes are written up as child pornography. But I can tell you, Lynn, this is anything but pornography. This is nothing but the rape of children. Rape and sexual abuse of children, and child sexual abuse material is commonly used here in the U.S. When you look at that, we are overwhelmed with these abuse videos on the market. Now, these abuse videos are traded on the dark web, not the clear web, but on the dark web, where it's much more difficult to track people, to find offenders, and all this. But these videos and these images are a commodity in and of themselves. We are overwhelmed right now with trying to identify the victims, trying to identify the children in those videos, to try to find them and rescue them and pull them out of that situation, get them help. Of course, we're going after the bad guys too, the predators, but the main emphasis is on rescuing those victims. We've got to identify, locate, and rescue. So within that, we are not keeping up. We're not even scratching the surface of it. Now, if you think about, and getting into something for the Raven side, like John Pizzurro, I know you've talked to him. Mm-hmm. Look at quite honestly, the minuscule amount of money that we give our ICACs over here, the Internet Crimes Against Children task forces in the US, only get $60 million allocated. And sometimes that's not all, they don't get all that money, and that's nationwide. So think about all these teams out here trying to identify these victims. Now imagine that people can generate their own CSAM videos. We don't know if those are real children or not. So now we have a video, and keep in mind, Lynn, we're not keeping up right now with the real videos. But now we have this flood of AI generated CSAM videos in. We don't know if it's a real child. First of all, we got to figure out, is this AI generated? And we're not quite to that point yet, but it's coming. So there are so many issues around that. Mm-hmm. Speaking as a prosecutor, and I'm already hearing rumors of this, these discussions going on. What if defense attorneys get to the point, and we have legal loopholes, and they exist, where they say, well, you can't prosecute my client because you can't prove this is a real child or not. Right. And we're looking at arguments like that on the legal side. So, it's not only that. What about malware? What about we can create code? We can ask, write codes in these things on Python or any other languages. We can have these programs create a program for us to do whatever we want. There's two sides to this coin. We can use it for good, and it's going to be used for bad. And the way these algorithms accelerate, it's much, much, much faster than the history of humans working on this. So when you start looking at generative AI, it's not just videos, but there's also text, there's coding, the image generation alone. If you're on ChatGPT, look at all the things that they've added in there. So I guess the main point of that would be to get into, keep in mind that everything with technology is a double-edged sword. Everything that there is that's good, there's also going to be some criminal out here that's going to figure out how to use it for bad. And we are always playing catch up. So
now you know why I can't sleep at night. No, yes. Kevin, you know what? Let me digress for a second. Answer this any way you see fit. Seriously, how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep yourself empowered? How do you keep yourself going? Because for myself, I just keep going. And my goal is one person a day. I educate one, I help one, whatever, a survivor, I educate, whatever that is. My goal is one a day, because I can't look at the big picture. I'm sitting here in the middle of New York City. I work with a lot of law enforcement here. Right. It's so big and overwhelming in a runaway train. How do you've been doing this for years, your boots on the ground. How do you do it?
That's a good question. I've dealt with investigators, officers, analysts. I've dealt with people, undercover chat. Let's say these undercover chat agents. I remember having a discussion with one saying, how do you let your kids leave your house and leave your site? How do you let them go to their grandparents for a sleepover? Because all she sees all day long, she's chatting with these people. She's got to fit in with them, of course, which is sickening in and of itself. But all she can see is, so when you look at child exploitation and a lot of this abuse, even human trafficking, which is another separate thing, you're looking at familial trafficking. People are trafficking their own kids. They're abusing the kids that they have within their care, and their grandparents, their aunts, uncles, their siblings, their parents, moms and dads. And you start seeing this, and you think, I can't trust anybody. I don't trust the faces I see out here, because I don't know what's underneath them. So it becomes really hard. Or law enforcement in California, was talking to them. They had just recovered a teenage girl. They are not able to take away and this is a victim of human trafficking. They couldn't take her phone away. On the way back to the police department, she's already texting her pimp saying, hey, they've got me. I'm going down. You need to pick me up. Mm-hmm. This gets to be so overwhelming on the people who are out here doing this work day after day. I think the best way to illustrate how we keep doing this, several years ago, or a few years ago, I started just saying just one more, and you'll see the NCPTF using the hashtag just one more, and some of the other people use it. I don't see it too widely, but Ben Owen, if you're not familiar with him, Flanders Field, Black Rifle, not the coffee company, Black Rifle Company, and We Fight Monsters. He and Jessica Owen are just doing tremendous grassroots, community, local level work, which that's where everything happens.
Yes.
We had a tornado, devastating tornado. I think it was last year in Arkansas. And he and Jessica were going over, and some of their crew were going over trying to help. Well, I went up and met Ben, thinking we're going to do something, come over here and help. And if you've ever been on site of a tornado, it's just devastating. You look out, and there was a college football team that was over there. A bunch of these big guys are out here grabbing stuff and just loading it. It looks like an army of ants. And you can't really tell that they're doing much because of just the magnitude of devastation. I was standing there talking to Ben as we looked out. I said, Ben, I don't feel like I don't know that we can do anything. We could work here all week, you and I, with no machinery and nothing, and you wouldn't even be able to tell. So he said, yeah, well, we're gonna help this family right here. And there was a family whose house was still standing, and all around it, it was just rubble. Nothing was left. Everything was devastated. They had 2 or 3 little kids out there that were, trying to play in the yard. They cleared out of space. Windows were blown out. The electricity was just gone. The power lines, everything were down. So Ben goes and pulls out I'm going blank. Generator, sorry. Pulls out a generator that he stopped and bought. They don't have a lot of money. They went and bought 2 or 3 generators, some chainsaws and stuff. Anyway, he went and pulled this generator out of his truck, went up, set it up, and got their electricity back on. So their refrigerator was working. So they had, their devices in the house. They could cook. They could do the basics they needed. Boarded up the windows. And it took a little while. But this family, without that, would have had nothing. I mean, I don't think they even had house insurance. This was a very, very poor part of town. They said, well, we're just going to help this one right now. Yeah. So, get that one up, that one family, that one person, get them up, get them solid and stable, and then you look for the next person to help. And, I don't want to overuse the starfish story, the one I'm talking about, but really that's what it is, Lynn. It's you're just looking for just one more. Where's the next one? I've helped this one. I can help another one. And I know we all want to save the world. We really do. But at the end, this comes down to community, local level work. I was in 12 countries last year, Pakistan, Thailand several times. I was all over the place. But you look at what Ben and Jessica are doing. They're on the ground helping people who really need it. And that's really struck me. And I'm looking now to dive deeper into, single areas instead of spreading myself thin out here. But how do you do it? You're just looking at just that one more. How do I help one more person? And then who's the next one? And as you do that just elevates you enough to keep you going to look forward to the next one, because we're not going to save the world, but we can save one at a time.
Yeah. Kevin, I call it a calling, like a nun or a priest, like the passion. Right. Obviously somebody has to have real passion to do what you do and want to do it as well. Let me ask you a couple of questions. First of all, we want the public to know the reality, and this is the brutal reality. I'm glad you brought up about familial trafficking. There are different studies, but the last one I saw said 64% here in New York are family members.
Right.
So whatever, it's high, very high. People have to understand that goes on. But we want to, with all of this talk, also give hope. We want to say we want to leverage the internet for good, because we all live in a digital world. We're not giving it back. This is the way of what we do, business, school, everything, but how to teach everybody in the homes, in the communities. I always say community creates change. I use that hashtag all the time. While we fight it out in Washington or help with all of that policy and legislation, we have to, at the community level, get in there and just educate and raise awareness of this runaway train. So I want to go into that a little bit more, but I want to ask you something, and I ask this all the time, so forgive me. I do not understand not giving more financial resources, overall resources, to people like you, to everybody working. These are proven things that are happening. Why won't they give more monies to help with all of this? Why? Why won't they partner up, the governments? Why? Why? Our precious children. I mean, and all people. And I'm talking in the United States right now, you know.
That's a really good question. If I had that
I don't mean to
answer,
put you on the spot, but it's like every day I ask myself, I'm like, well, I have my own thoughts about a lot of things, but I'm like, these are our precious children. These are our future adults or our future leaders, right?
yep,
What's going on here? I can't imagine 5, 10 years from now if this runaway train continues on this path.
yeah. I
And
think I think after working with Raven and I know John Pizzuro's killing it out here. He's getting out talking to politicians. I do remember the first trip we made to DC. One of the staffers said, we're an inch deep and a mile wide. We have all these other things that we've got to focus on. And I know that they have a responsibility at so many levels and so many other things while we're really laser focused on this child issue. So I knew, I know that's one thing. I'll give them that they are dealing with a whole lot of things. And I think there's another aspect of this, like the Taylor Swift incident that's pretty recent. That really wasn't getting much traction. It wasn't getting much attention until it happened to somebody that's in the spotlight. Now, if you look at who we have in office, political office especially, or some of the people with money, influence, and power that are running a lot of these organizations, a lot of these companies, a lot of this tech, they're not as likely to see their children or children they know or other people they know being victims. Not like you're going to see the people in poverty. So I really hate the term, but we have throwaway kids out here that are growing up with maybe a single parent who's having to work a couple of jobs just to make ends meet. And, they're suffering and they're growing up on the streets. They're growing up with all these bad influences and poverty. Looking at poverty, you're looking at addiction, which is one of the big things that Ben Owens group fights on the streets of Memphis. The addiction itself is just horrifying. You don't see that at the level of people who have money, who have power and influence. I don't think. That's my opinion. There are no studies on this I'm aware of or anything else like that, but that's what I see. It doesn't affect them and they only know this much about it, very little. And that's just the way it is. But I was told.
It's shocking. I don't. It's shocking, Kevin. I don't mean to interrupt. Because I'm here in New York City. We do a lot of work behind the scenes. That we're not posting things on Facebook. We're not putting them online. It's private work. It is mostly of color, girls, boys. Adults of color.
Yep.
Nobody wants to talk about it. And I will share with you. Somebody in Washington actually said, I won't give the name, said to me, when I first started doing this, which was not that long ago, 5 years ago or so, I started really getting involved and I couldn't believe what was happening in the United States because my background is in producing of things and entertainment. And so everything was always geared towards, Philippines or Thailand. We're going to get water in Africa. Like it was always like other places. So then when I found out this is going on all over the United States, I couldn't accept it. I'm like, I'm not accepting this. And felt so blessed that my children, they're now in their 30s, but like I didn't have to deal with all this when they were little kids at all. So somebody in Washington said to me, I said, oh my goodness, they were telling me about the ages of children getting younger and younger. And this is like 5 years ago. And when they told me one fact, and he just kept talking, and I said, well, no, wait a minute, go back there. And I said, well, what's going on with these children? And this person used the term to me, they're throwaway kids.
Yep.
And I was sick to my stomach. I'm not kidding. Like I left there sick. And that's when I'm like, I'm going to become a warrior. A word I never used in my entire life. I'm like, I'm just going to do what I can do at this point in my life, bring it to the table, give other groups and organizations any media attention, promote them, support them, whatever I can do, help survivors. I don't understand all this talk and we're ignoring that population of, this is another question there's no answer to. But the need is there. I'm still trying to get at why we can't have more resources, more manpower, more tools available to, these are our children, precious children. So that part I'm not understanding as we go after bipartisan legislation. We've had good news this week with the KOSA, Kids Online Safety Act. That's something. That's something. But you know what, Kevin, I say to myself, everybody I know behind the scenes is putting, big tech, all their resources into AI and this
Yes.
AGI. So I feel like, well, that, we're talking Facebook, X now. This kind of go away. We're going to be so advanced. This is just me saying this again. I have no proof or anything. Let's have some fun, whatever, because we're going into this thing, AI, like full steam. But even going back to Taylor Swift, even her headline about this didn't really get that much play
No.
at all. And I feel like that was ages ago, even though it was just, the other,
Yep.
because, and again, people have the attention span of a gnat. So these stories go, and I'm always like, where's the follow-up? Like, what did it really happen to her? This is where I come from, because I've done a lot of strategies for companies, or is it they put it out there, team, just to get some headlines? Like, I hate to doubt anybody, but I'm always like looking like, where's the proof? Where let's go and let's build upon it. So let me ask you, what do you want right now the public to know? Because and I know when they hear things like this, they tune out. They shut their eyes, they close the door. They don't want to know. People are busy. Let's be real. Paying rent, paying mortgages, putting food on the table. It's been a mess in our country. That's just the facts. Okay. And we need to get at the people to educate themselves. I used to always go towards educating kids. And then I realized, Kevin, no, I've got to put the bulk of the education towards the adults.
Right.
So they then can work in their homes and communities with the kids.
Right.
Share with us, what do you want people right now to do in 2024? How should they address all of this, not tune out? What are their steps?
Well, you're exactly right. We live in a throwaway society. I mean, look at our fashion. It's made to wear out and be thrown away and recycled. To buy something new, we have an attention deficit because of things like Twitter and social media, videos, TikTok. We want everything in little sound bites. And if it's something unpleasant, we're going to just keep going to the next thing. And how do we get engagement is a big question. So, in this country, we measure what we value. And I can tell you, we value our stuff far more than we value childhood or our children. If you go to any agency out here and ask them, how many car thefts did you have last month? They can tell you a number. How many break-ins, how many burglaries, how many commercial burglaries? They'll give you numbers. If you ask them, how many missing kids have you got in your jurisdiction? I don't know. Don't really know. How many runaways? How many foster kids are not where they're supposed to be right now, that are not under the care of that foster parent or that guardian, whoever that may be? We don't measure that. Not really, not at all. I can't tell you a single place I've been here in the US that really measures that and can give you accurate information. Now, what I want parents to understand is that we label things. We use labels quite well in this country. Throwaway kids. And you brought up children of color. So you get children of color, children in poverty. If you look at the runaway posters, if there are any, it will usually say ran away, left without permission, something of that nature. And with that label or that tag on there, our society tends to blame the victim. Oh, it's the child's fault. It's their fault. Now, we know there are people grooming our children out here, and the digital space gives them just unlimited access. Children are groomed in the car on their way to school to be dropped off with their parents driving. They're groomed at night in their bedrooms. They're groomed on their gaming systems. They're groomed in anything that touches the internet. And these people that are grooming them, they share information amongst themselves. On the dark web, there are manuals on how do you find a child, how do you groom a child, how do you do all these things. And they know that if you snatch a child, if you pull up in your white van in the Walmart parking lot and you snatch a child, all hell's going to break loose. FBI, Homeland Security, National Guard, everybody's coming out to look. If you groom a child and you tell them, you need to run away. Now, I always say this, and I'm not putting Phoenix police down, but if you do a Google search on Phoenix police runaway, and you'll see their policy, they just lay it out. Running away is not a crime. It's up to the parent or guardian of that child to find that child. Yes, they will take a report and put them into NCIC and probably send it to NCMEC, but it's really up to the parent or guardian of that child to find the child. So essentially what we have are predators grooming children, getting them to run away. And when you look at all the runaways that we have, you just Google the numbers, see how many runaways we have in this country every year, and a number you're not going to be able to find, or how many kids are missing from the foster care system. That number, if you find that number, please let me know. I'm very interested. How many foster kids are out here? And then you're looking at reservation kids. And then you're looking at familial trafficking or familial abuse. When you start looking at those numbers, you're looking at a population of children that are out here on the street. And I agree on educating the parents, the adults. We really, really have to do that. But then we're educating the parents, the people who actually want to engage with their children and give their children a better life. This other population of children, they don't really have anybody. There's nobody looking for them. And they're out here on the street with no resources, no job skills, no way of taking care of themselves. That's where these predators come in. They will pull them in, give them a place to live, give them food, give them some help, but they have to pay their way. So then you're looking at sex trafficking, labor trafficking, you're looking at forced criminality, things like organized retail crime. I saw one group that was sending kids out into Dillard saying, here, you need to get these purses, you need to get these other items here, steal them, and then, bring them back. Now, if you think about this, who's arrested? Who gets in trouble? It's the kids. It's not the people that are at the top, the ones that are taking all this in. So this is a big operation that's going on out here. So one of the things I want people to know is we really have to engage more with our community. When we were growing up, I still remember everybody wanted their address in the phone book. So everybody would know, hey, this is me, this is my house, this is my community, this is my neighborhood. Now, most people don't even know who their neighbors are. Most people don't know anybody in their community. There's no interaction. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody. But we have to be the keeper of other children. We have to engage with our children's children. We have to teach our children, or those children we have an influence on, keep an eye out for your friends, even if they're not really your friends. If you see somebody sitting alone at lunch, if you hear one of the children say something about abuse at home, or saying something else that would be a red flag, let me know, let your teacher know, let somebody know. We need to engage our society and encourage everybody to be your brother's keeper, essentially, your brother and your sister's keeper. We should be looking out for each other, whether we know these people or not. And we also need to teach our kids. There are other kids who don't have very much. They live in poverty. They're not going to look as nice as you. They're not going to have fancy clothes and the nice shoes, but they're still good people, and you still need to engage with them and try to be, we need to try to encourage that level of connection and humanity. And I think we've lost that in our throwaway society. It's all instant gratification and what's in it for me.
But it's up to us as the adults. We have to swing it back. I'm glad you pointed out about something I speak a lot about. Obviously we talk about, keeping the kids safe and this and that, but it's concerned parents, or concerned family members. But what about that group? Nobody's looking for them. The
Right.
mother is, drug addicted.
Yes.
The parent, or they're left in charge of their siblings. I keep asking, what about this group of kids? There's a report here in New York City. Then it disappeared, Kevin, but I did see it with my own eyes that since COVID, now I don't know if this is true or not, and I cannot find it anymore, 41% of public school students in New York City just never returned, K through 12. Now, I will say when I'm out during the day, I'll say, oh, that child should be in school. But then you never know. Maybe they're homeschooled,
Right.
but 12-year-olds walking alone, I don't know, 12 o'clock in the afternoon should be in school.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many issues to deal with all of this.
Yeah.
That's happening. So I want to break it down. I hope you'll come back in the future so we can continue on talking about definitely AI, definitely little tips. Even you mentioned before, at nighttime, keeping phones. We're big advocates of keeping phones out of the bedrooms at night.
Yep.
Adults lead by example. Everybody's got to put the phones away in the
Yep.
car. Talk to your kids in the car while you're driving them. Little tips, who do you know all your friends on Facebook or Snap? And just little things like that make a big difference. I want to ask you, how can the public help you? Because we as warriors always try to come together. We want to help others? What do you need from the public right now?
Uh, I mean, for me, I mean, just connect with me on LinkedIn. Keep up. I post things periodically. We just had a rescue out of Mexico. It's a group, not a group, but a family coming in that were approved through other family to come into the U.S. As they were coming through Mexico, they were snatched. So they were kidnapped. So just worked on that, and the team that's working over there needs, it's expensive to fly people in, to move people around. We got safe houses, or not we, I don't, but this group I work with, they've got safe houses and other things. They need funding, so I put that out on a GoFundMe. It's not mine. I don't get the money. It's this rescue group that I do trust. But I put stuff out on LinkedIn. I do want to mention, you triggered something in my head here on the bystander effect, and you know the Kitty Genovese story. Yes,
I
New York.
grew up with that story. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that bystander effect. I really like that you kind of triggered something in me that, how do you help me? Well, the bystander effect, people don't take action because they think, well, somebody else is going to do it, or I might embarrass myself if I'm wrong. So if you do see somebody, if you see a kid traveling on an airplane, it doesn't look like they're with a parent or a valid adult, something's not wrong, something's not right there. Let a flight attendant, let an official know, this triggered something with me. I don't think it's right. Can you look into it or report it? Put something in place, put something in action. If you see a kid walking along the side of the road, maybe call your local police department, say this kid's walking over here. Try to engage, and don't let the bystander effect relieve you of the obligation to help somebody else. So I think to help me personally, just follow me on LinkedIn. I put stuff out periodically, but to help yourself and help our society, don't be a bystander. Take some action. Don't be afraid of being wrong, and just engage and try to help people.
Yeah, we always promote you don't get in trouble, because I've had many people say, I might be wrong, I'll get in trouble. No. Local law enforcement, 911, like you said, in an airport, go up to the desk, on a plane, a flight attendant. There's no nothing. Everybody should have, I'm always telling them, the human trafficking hotline
Yes.
program, have that available. I also always promote 988, the suicide hotline
Yes. It's another.
number,
Yep.
just to have that. Kevin, why do you think they're working on? Do we know anything? Why don't they have a 3-digit? I just thought of this about 2 weeks ago for the human trafficking hotline.
That's a really good question.
They
I don't
it only popped in my head the other day because I'm always repeating the number. And then I thought, wow, why don't we have a 3-digit? We got to work on that, because
do.
that's something like everybody is knowing now, finally, 988. Like they're
Yeah.
finally, which is a year and a half into it. Because I every day was going around like, do you know it's 988, 988? So many issues, so many problems. I am so happy that you're at the forefront of doing all this work and educating somebody like me so that I can do a better job. I mean, you really are, Kevin, a warrior, and we thank you for all of your service. You're so dedicated. You're so committed. In the body of this video, I'll have your LinkedIn, the
Okay.
link for all of that. So people, because I also say, people are always like, what can I do? Well, obviously, money's always good for organizations and all of this work, but just retweeting, a vetted story people can do, or sharing
Right.
that story, or reading and learning a fact. That is
Right.
something everybody can do. And look, and I liked what you said. I'm going to leave you with this, because I talk about it a lot. We now live in a country. We have to look out for our neighbors. It's a real tough one. I mean, I'm in the middle of New York City,
Yeah.
but
Right.
we have to be aware there are so many kids that have nobody, just
Right.
nothing, and they fall prey. I live close to this Port Authority bus terminal, and if I walk past it, I can pick out, Kevin, that one's waiting for a kid. That one's waiting for a kid. I live by Covenant House. I live by. Do you know
Right.
the pimps hang out across the street? Just, the kids can leave during the day.
Right.
It's all over,
It is.
and it's all over. And I gave a speech not long ago, a workshop, and the woman came up, and everybody knew what it was about. And she came up and yelled at me, and she said I made her so sick with my talk. And I said, well, I think this warrants everybody getting sick about
Yes.
all of this, that this is going on.
Yep.
It's being allowed on a lot of levels because it's so hard to get at and control. But I
Right.
know I know if we start having more of your work and more resources and more of what I do and all the great, there are a lot of great people, a lot of great law enforcement organizations, nonprofits, individuals working on this. I believe, Kevin, the pendulum is so far gone. It's going to really start swinging back
Yep.
ever so slightly, because
Right.
guess what? More people in my 5 years have been talking about it, are aware
Right.
about it, know about it, and we got you. So I'm feeling pretty good right now because you are such a warrior. So everybody, Kevin Metcalf on LinkedIn, I'm going to have that information in the body of this. Kevin, thank you. I hope we can speak again soon. There's so many different issues, foster care, just the continuance of AI, just so many things I do want to get your
All right.
expert opinion about. So thank you very much. We will definitely speak again soon.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.